Mike, here we are.
Good to see you.
We made it. Hey,
Yeah.
man. First, I really do want to thank you for doing this. I know we were joking around a little before we got started about how we love to hear people talk about how great we are. But the exciting thing about having you on today is that we don't get to talk to a lot of our clients or even a lot of people, even peers, that do this as much as you do. Like, you are in it every day. And I think you're going to have some really interesting insights on the world of virtual and hybrid. So first, just so everybody knows, Mike works for ACFE. That's the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. And we've been fortunate enough to be doing some business with you guys, I guess, since like 2018. And our role has changed a lot in what we do with you guys. And your productions have changed a lot, obviously, since we started, from going full virtual to now full hybrid. And it's been a really interesting journey, but I'm going to let you do it. So I don't need a full career arc, but maybe tell me a little bit about how you got into where you are now. Talk a little bit about your current role, and then we'll get into the weeds from there.
Sure. So my early 20s, I was a pyrotechnician. We did sporting events, tours, things like that. It was it was a full-time job, but it was kind of a weekend gig. I would work pretty heavily Thursday through Sunday, and then, Monday through Wednesday off, and sitting around playing a lot of video games Monday through Wednesday, and decided I should be productive in those days. So I got a job as a part-time valet, and then that turned into a full-time thing, which led to some other advancement in that role, one of which was an overnight shift. And it was just wreaking havoc on me. Like, I'm a night owl, but I am not meant for overnights. And I had a friend working at the ACFE, and she's like, "Hey, we're hiring," and started in a role there as a call center rep, and over the years worked my way into events.
Dude, so you really came up through the ranks. I didn't know that. I thought you started in events or in marketing. No. And then came up from there, but you started you're like mailroom to C-suite, bro. Yeah. Like, you did it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good for you, man. That's great. And you're a musician too, right? So you have some experience. And then what's your audio background or technical background?
Yeah. So as far as actual production goes, obviously some home recording stuff, kind of helping out in studios here and there, creating soundtracks for the pyro productions that we used to do as well. And then, I also run our band's in-ears while we're playing, which is fun to do.
So you're turning knobs, man. You know signal flow. Like, you've got a little more knowledge than I would say the average event producer.
Yeah. Oh, I think I lost you there for a second. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was gonna say you're turning knobs. You're doing stuff you have things. More knowledge than the average kind of.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, so what's your current role? What's the title?
So I'm virtual event manager.
My
team handles the virtual and hybrid events for the ACFE.
How many do you think you do a year?
I know for a fact we do over 100 over the course of a year.
I want everybody to hear that. This man does over 100 virtual events a year. So we get people freaking out about doing one.
Yeah.
You're doing over 100.
Yes.
It's insane. Yeah. You guys are just a content machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. Okay, well then let's get into this then. So you're leading this team of producers at ACFE. Talk to me about how you've seen the demand and execution of virtual and hybrid events kind of change since you've started in this role. And I know that I said I want to talk about it in the context of COVID, but I really don't care as much about that because we all know that it went crazy during COVID.
Yeah.
But really just talk to me about the evolution of it and now kind of what you're seeing on what people expect from these things and how you're making them happen. How has that changed since you came on?
Yeah, well, so obviously we had been handling webinars for many years. I think we started doing webinars around 2014, which was long before I was with the company. What was interesting is obviously when pandemic hit, there was a huge demand for it, huge necessity, really.
Right.
What the interesting part was there was a lot of hesitation initially from both our presenters and our leadership about the technology handling that much bandwidth. And so from our leadership, we were kind of pre-recording everything and then kind of putting it out and what's called like a simulive situation. So it's on demand, it's pre-recorded, but
Right,
it plays
right.
at a certain time.
We still have people that still do that. So
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and it's great. It works fine. It certainly has its limitations and its benefits. And then from the speaker standpoint, there was a lot of nervousness about it as well. I don't have the people in front of me. I don't have that interaction. And again, we're re-recording them as well. And so we even had some speakers would set up like cardboard cutouts. One speaker actually has like all the Beatles in front of her, and she presents to the Beatles for all of her virtual events.
I love it.
They went from pre-recording it and it being a very sterile recording. I'm looking at the camera and I'm going to get through my presentation, and then obviously when we go live, they would answer questions at the very end.
Right.
And that was most of 2020. As we get into the tail end of 21, 22, we start seeing them kind of using group chat options more, external polling methods more, and kind of being a little more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
They found their groove ultimately over the course of the year and a half or so.
Right. Which I think, it harkens back to the first event we did for you guys in 2018. I think that and I think you had 11 rooms going simultaneously, which now I think you guys are down to 6, but we stream them. Then we were recording, live switching those records, capturing that, and then we were running them back to like a centralized where we had 2 editors on site that were editing all of that content, and then we were immediately turning it over to you.
Yes.
So instead of it going out live, it was like we were capturing it, immediately editing it, and then giving it back to you.
Yeah.
Which just seems, I mean, there are some scenarios where we're turning over stuff really quickly like that now, but with the just advent and proliferation of live stream and this stuff getting pushed out, it's less and less that they're like, okay, I need this in 2 hours after it goes. It's like, okay, cool. Well, it's live, so it's already out there. But yeah, that's nuts. That has changed a lot. Well, so you have some background in some, I mean, you have probably more technical knowledge than most people that go into this, which is probably why you advanced so quickly and why you ended up the position that you're in. But talk to me about if somebody's doing this and maybe they're doing it in-house, or they're hiring somebody for a portion of it or doing it. What kind of technical skills do you think are important? And less about the planning and logistics and everything, but really technically, what kind of stuff do you think it's important for people to know? And specifically for people that have no background or no experience before, what do you think are some things they may need to brush up on?
Well, one, I think personally, the technology, but not in the sense of learning the technology, like you said. Like there are professionals out there that like you guys, Audion, right? Like they can hire you guys to come in, and you guys are going to be far more skilled in those resources than they probably will ever be, at least anytime soon.
Sure.
But by learning the technology, learning what options are available, that can kind of help mold an event, a presentation, things like that. Like one of my big things that I always say is I will Apollo 13 this, and in sense of like, I don't care what something is made to do. I care what it can do. Right.
Yeah.
And so by that, we can kind of hack things and make a unique experience for somebody, and then have, obviously like you guys come in and kill it.
Yeah, which y'all have been really good about, because you have, again, because the amount of content that you're creating, and I mean, that's kind of like your thing. That's what you guys do. You're a content generating machine. You have a very robust platform available to you through On24. Mm-hmm. And On24 is exceptional at a lot of things. It really helps us when we know, and this is something that we've preached since day one, is that we never try to shoehorn people into a solution, right? It's like, what are you working with? Is it you have a Joomla website or some old Drupal website or some old content management system that you just need an embed for? Cool, let me get you that off of our Watson servers, or let me build you a channel out off of our AWS and Wowza servers, and we'll do that. But like for you guys, you've already got a main target for us to execute to. So we're like pushing to that. Mm-hmm. You can see real-time analytics as to what's going on. So we're there just to make sure that the content is captured correctly, that it gets to the target, and that we have a backup deployed in case something happens. Which I will say kudos to you guys, because we talked about this with somebody else. you would be shocked at how many people bring us in that are on Cvent or on StreamYard or on some of these platforms that have no backups deployed.
Wow.
Those platforms don't have backups sometimes.
I didn't know that.
Dude, Cvent, I can't tell you, and I shouldn't say their name because they're probably going to send a cease and desist or sue me, but the big stuff we did for HAL Labs, the reason that we got that contract is because Cvent went down twice during an event, and the second time it went down, we deployed our backup servers and we kept the show alive. But it was like in meetings with those guys in pre-production, we're like, hey, what happens if this goes down? You gave us one target. They go, oh, well, this is on our servers. It's not going to go down. It went down. Yeah. But y'all, you've got contingency, you've got all these things to do. So it definitely makes for a much better program. But I agree with you in saying that know what you've got, know the limitations of what you've got, know what you may be able to do outside the box, and then you can kind of figure out how to fit somebody else in. So if you need professionals to come in, because obviously for you guys, your production is so large and there's so many moving parts, to do that internally, the staff you'd have to have would just be unbelievable.
Right. We'd need a whole company worth of people.
Yeah. And you would probably kill yourself. I mean, you probably just wouldn't live. I mean, there's no way you would be able to manage that. It'd be insane.
Yeah.
Which is what we try to not do. So that brings me into this next portion. I mean, you know this. I mean, people that do 2 events a year know how demanding this stuff can be. So what are some of now let's get into the logistics and the managerial parts of it. Like what are some key strategies that you employ or some tactics that you use to lead a team under pressure like this? Because I can't explain to people enough what your events look like. It's just, it's impossible for them to fathom, especially some of the smaller associations, to know what you deal with. And it's not like you have a massive team, but so give me some of those, give me some strategies, give me some tips. How do you manage a team? How do you manage people? How do you make sure this thing runs smooth from start to finish?
Project management, having, that 1,000-foot view, the conceptual view of what we're doing and how all of our various tools tie into it. Testing, retesting, thinking about our contingencies, like you said, right? Like, what happens if this goes down? What happens if the speaker's internet fails, which happens?
Don't take anything for granted. Don't take anything for granted. Yeah.
Right. And having all of these backup for a backup ready to deploy, having backup staff, if we have a single producer on an event, having somebody that's on standby, working on something else, but they can hop in if needed. Just being very familiar with your tool set, knowing how it all works. Again, the Apollo 13 thing, know what you can and can't do with something. We had an instance once where a speaker lost visibility of their slides. And so with OBS, I hopped in, imported their slides into OBS, like in the screen share, and made my camera visible to her as
so she could see
her slides. And so, it was a little clunky in a sense of like next slide, but at least she had reference to where she was at. The audience could see, and we were able to continue on with maybe a minute or two of downtime.
That's amazing. Yeah, and nobody knows but you. And some people may be like, "Oh, there was a little sloppy in the middle there," but it got through. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't want people to be scared off by that, thinking that they have to know all these technical aspects of it. But it really it behooves you to know a little bit about what you're working with. And if you don't, to bring somebody in to talk you through that. Right. And I think we try to do that a lot as well, where, even when we were getting to know you guys and on 24, gosh, I think the first thing we did for y'all was we came, and I don't think you were there yet. You might've been there, but you were, I guess at that time, you were probably working in the call center, so you wouldn't have seen us. But when we came in to pitch, we brought in our full setup. We asked for targets to stream to, and we set up in your conference room. And said, I think Andy was there, and then Leslie might have been there too. And it was like, hey, here's how everything works. Here's how we put it together. Here, show us where you want us to push it. Here's where the backup's deployed. Here's where the main target is. So now we're going to your servers. Here's what it looks like on our servers. Here's what happens when we swap. And everybody could see all the pieces put together. So they didn't know that before, but they knew after. And then it was like, okay, cool, I get it. This is what we can do. So don't be scared to ask, I think, is the other thing that's really important.
Yeah, don't be scared to ask. And the terminology oftentimes makes zero sense. But if you have at least a little bit working knowledge, or you're able to, take what you've learned from one event and translate that into another one, it tends to go a little smoother as well.
And let's talk about that for a second, because also I want to talk about terminology. This has come up in every conversation we've had so far, is the confusion around hybrid versus virtual.
Yeah.
And what that means. And that a virtual production, by definition, is something that is fully virtual, right? So that would be maybe, do you guys do a lot of that? Like, is there stuff that you produce solely 100% virtual with no in-person?
Yeah, actually, majority of what we do is virtual. Yeah.
So you're just is that mostly pre-records, or are you doing that real time?
Real time. So with our platform on 24, as you mentioned before, speaker logs in on one side, audience is on another, and then there's the meeting in the middle. Yeah,
and then hybrid, what that does is that adds an in-person component, which is your general sessions, like for yours, which I will tell you that we use the example of your general sessions for 90% of our pitches.
Yeah.
Because they're huge.
They're huge.
I mean, they're massive. And then you've got somebody, your keynote speaker for the last 2 or 3 years or whatever has not been able to be in person.
Yeah.
And so we've brought them in virtually and done a full hybrid event. And then we always have another room set up for you guys in case a presenter can't make it, that we can go full hybrid. So the people in the room could still see them while they came in virtually. The remote audience can see them as well. And people are still really confused by what it means to be a hybrid event. They think that launching a Zoom meeting is a hybrid event. And it's like, man, I really want to get some clarity in that area as people move forward, because I think that there's a lot of predatory sales going on.
Sure.
From venues, from other production companies, from whatever, that people are pitching hybrid, and all they're doing is one-way pushes or virtual productions.
Right.
And it's confusing to people,
Sure.
if you're not in it every day.
So, understandably.
Yeah, it's crazy. So do this. I want to hear, I've heard some of your stories on site, but give me the biggest catastrophic failure that didn't involve Audion. I'm just kidding. I don't think we've had any bad ones. But give me the biggest catastrophic failure that you've had on site doing a virtual or hybrid event.
Well, I do have one, and it does involve you guys. However, you guys were the saviors. You guys were the heroes on this. So
I want to hear it then.
Yes. It was actually last year in Seattle for our conference. We had we were running audio through the house system. The house system crashed in the very first session of the morning. I think it was 7 a.m., maybe 8.
It was the whole venue,
Yeah, the entire venue audio crashed. And one, were you guys also able to help us figure out what was happening?
Right.
I think you guys may have even been the first people to alert us that it had happened.
Yeah, for sure, because our guys were in the rooms,
Yeah, but you were able to deploy your contingencies and work with the venue staff on getting us back up and running for the in-person. So the virtual audience saw no downtime. Right. They were kind of just waiting for the in-person side to get the resolution in. And so, like, having you guys there was a huge benefit, because we were able to keep the sessions running while working on these other resolutions.
Yeah, nothing stopped. I mean, as far as the people in the room obviously had some idea of what was going on, but you could just talk louder and they could hear it,
Right.
and it was like, it was okay.
Yeah.
And then, I think that was, I don't remember if it was a power thing that they had there, but that was a new venue, right? And
it was a brand new venue.
Yeah, it was relatively untested.
Yeah.
Because I think we also had, that one I remember there was one specific room that we were having major packet loss on the VLAN. And we had to down res outgoing video to adjust for that, because we were losing chunks of video as it was headed out.
Right.
And we were only able to see that on our end going through. Like, you guys weren't able to detect it on 24 because it was just ingesting. Right. But we saw that. I do remember that now. And the audio thing was crazy.
I had forgot about that. That's a whole other aspect that
was nuts. That was the one that worried me because I was like, what is happening? Like, why is it this one room?
Yeah.
But it was just a network anomaly there. And that also, I got to give props to like, who is it, LMG, who was the AV provider there, because they deployed, I think, freestanding speakers pretty quickly to those rooms and got them back up and running, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Well, and so, yeah, obviously with them, but then with you guys and that one room just kind of dropping their the rates there.
Yeah.
You guys knowing your gear and knowing how to counteract that. I mean, that saved that room entirely until we were able to figure out what was going on and work with the venue to fix it.
Which this brings about a really important point too that I think we should just touch on is that you are likely to be in scenarios where you have multiple vendors on site, right? Because now it's getting more and more difficult when you come into a hotel or a conference center that they are going to allow you. I mean, they'll always allow you to bring in an outside vendor, but they are penalizing you more and more for doing that. And so whether it's putting a liaison fee on you or tacking on some service fees at the end to our prices, but chances are that you're going to have a production team that's going to have to interface with an on-site AV crew. And I think it's really important to have those pre-con meetings, and you guys are great about that. From the walkthroughs to the pre-con meetings, having everybody around a table, what's your part, what are you responsible for, whatever, and then making sure that wherever that buck stops, which typically it's with us, because we're the last thing before that content is outbound, that we know everything in that chain, and you've got to have that, because the hotel guys, what they're going to do is go, oh man, the internet went down. Sorry. It's like, okay, well then what?
Yeah.
What do you do now? You don't have an LTE backup. You don't have some way to keep. Oh, now internet's down. Can't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had a power surge. Sorry. Dropped content. You're like, dude, that can't stop the show.
That can't stop the show.
That can't stop the show. Well, look. So, looking forward, 6 months, a year, 5 years. How do you see like the entire landscape of these events and the management of this events? Virtual, hybrid, all this kind of changing, and specifically, like, I have some real serious thoughts about this stuff, and I will share those shortly here. But are there any specific trends or innovations within kind of this virtual and hybrid world that you think are going to become more predominant, that you're going to see more and more out in the world?
Oh, trends. I think I can look at this a few ways. From a venue aspect, I think it's taken some time for them to scale up to be able to handle a production like ours, or even some of these other larger events, even something that's multiple rooms, right?
Yeah.
Like they've needed to kind of rethink their infrastructure a bit. So now we're, at the end of it, the tail end of the pandemic, things like that. They've had 3 or 4 years. I feel like most are pretty much there. They're making you pay for it. but eventually I think those costs will start to level out, and, inflation, et cetera. All of that. From a production standpoint, I've seen all sorts of companies pop up where, hey, I figure I can do this. Let's give it a shot. And that's great, and that often is the case, and it will possibly work for many people in many use cases. There's also some certain level of experience that is a huge benefit.
Sure.
And then obviously from the attendee aspect, they're starting to be more comfortable with it. We're certainly starting to see in-person reg numbers increase, but it's nowhere near the pre-pandemic levels. And honestly, our virtual audience numbers are maintaining.
Yeah.
We got this note early in the pandemic we have a lot of corporate and government partnerships, and we got this note early on that this particular organization was so excited that our conference was still going to be held, and it was going to have a continued virtual aspect, because now they were able to send an entire department rather than a handful of people because of the travel, room and board, etc. They could parlay all of that fund into additional registrations, which in turn, it's great for us. That's revenue for us. So I don't really think hybrid or virtual are going anywhere, at least anytime soon. What I would like to see in the future is, at least for us, the audiences seem to be two distinct audiences. There's the in-person audience, there's the virtual audience. And regardless of the event and the size, I would like to see some technology or increased capabilities where we can merge the two. Right now it's really just the group chat, the polling system where it's like, oh, look, 30% of the in-person and 20% of the virtual voted this way.
That's right.
Things like that. I would love to marry the two audiences, and then that has all sorts of implications, from networking opportunities to sponsorships. That opens, the sponsors are able to increase their audience size as well. So I think that's where I'd like to see things go.
That's everything I was going to say. You're on it, and that's what we're seeing. It's straight up the idea that, and people are probably so tired of hearing me say this, but the idea that hosting an event online through a hybrid platform will never cannibalize your in-person attendance. Those are distinct audiences. It's not how it happens. And to your point, now you've got someone that can reallocate these funds where they had travel and all this other stuff into additional registrations. Mm-hmm. Not to mention the idea that, you guys don't do this, but other people do. You have sponsorship opportunities for your streaming portion of it. Mm-hmm. So generate the revenue. This is another revenue stream now. Yeah. Okay, we're going to do, full hybrid video conference brought to you by our hybrid gold sponsor Audion. That's a big deal. You can get that production covered. Plus get it all recorded in the can, use it for later marketing materials, not to mention the B-roll, all the cool stuff you can get around from hype videos. But the fact that you can increase your outreach and potentially touch more people is huge. The second piece of that is there are people, and again, people are tired of hearing me say this, that will only interact with your brand, with your association, with your organization digitally. They will never meet you in person. They will never see you in person. So to exclude those people and to just say, no, we're only doing it in person and tough if you can't get here, is so short-sighted and just unbelievable. And it's a very old way of thinking. The other portion of that is you talked about the value for sponsors. Now, this is something that was really interesting to me that just came up. We were on a podcast for this marketing group that does for oil and gas industry. Mm-hmm. And they are seeing more and more at these things now that instead of these guys spending $500,000 on a booth, what they're doing is spending a fraction of that on a booth, but bringing in virtualized models of their equipment.
Sure.
So that people can, manipulate that equipment in real time and do the things they need to do, along with having some sort of virtual component on site, which we've deployed to the last several events that we've done, where we take the virtual expo hall that we build out for somebody and we bring it on site in the form of a big touch screen. So not only do you walk the booths and go, cool, I saw your booth. Maybe you're a little shy, a little introverted. You don't want to dig too deep with somebody. You go get their, whatever, who's got the best swag. Like, let me get that Yeti cup. And then you scurry off. But then you can go over to their touch screen and go through and see all their information about it, get what you want, hit the QR code, go to their website, set up a meeting for later without having to have that face-to-face personal interaction. And that's the stuff that's super exciting to me. Yeah. Like merging those worlds, bringing the virtual to the on-site, not just the on-site to the virtual. Yeah. I think that's the big thing. And you hit the nail on the head with that. And we've tried to do that with some kind of like compartmentalized chat, to where instead of it's just one big chat room, we try to break it down and make it more granular. So it's like, okay, you want to talk about this, go here. You want to talk about this, go here. Right. You want to talk about that, go here. That really allows people to connect in the space that they want to, just like they would in person, without all the noise around them from everything else. So I'm stoked about that stuff, man. Like that's the stuff where I'm like, we're really pushing clients now. Like, are you sure you don't want us to like deploy touch screens on site and do virtual? Or are you sure you don't want to do these like compartmentalized chats? Like, let's figure this out, because I don't know if you've seen this or how much you guys have tried, and we'll end it on this, but the idea that you will ever have a successful virtual networking event, I think, is really proving to be difficult.
Yeah.
Like the idea that you're going to do some virtual networking event that people are going to be so pumped for that's going to be successful is tough. But if you can find a way to merge these two worlds and bring them together in a way that makes sense for people, allows them to do it on their own time, allows them to feel like they're part of it or invested in it, I think is a much more powerful thing. And so have you guys done any of that? Did you try it? You've tried some virtual networking, yeah?
We've tried some virtual networking, and admittedly at the platforms that we tried to use, they looked like a GeoCities website.
Yeah.
And so it was a little difficult to navigate.
I love that.
I'm interested at least in it doesn't, the way our platform works, it doesn't really cost us anything to have it available.
Sure.
And because there, again, just as there's people who want to come in person, there is a certain set of people who are willing to just kind of have that virtual meet and greet.
Okay.
So we can leave it open, and it doesn't really cost us anything. But if it provides the opportunity for an attendee to have a good experience, what's the loss there?
Yeah,
I love it. I remember I want to jump back to this real quick. I remember when you told me about your digital displays for the sponsorships, and I remember thinking, walking through our exhibit hall, and I don't know that you guys ever get the chance
I've never, in all the years that we have done this, I'm always in that war room. I have never stepped foot into the expo hall.
It's huge. We have often over 30 booths of sponsors. That's not including our own little informational booths about the various products and programs that we run.
Yeah.
And, the last few years since we've been back in person, or, hybrid, but the in-person aspect of it, we have 2,500 attendees. Those booths back up. And so I think it would be kind of nice. Like, you've got limited time to walk through the event hall space.
Right.
So if there's an opportunity for me to just kind of check in on something, let me scan this QR code. I get the info they need. They get the info they need. And then I can move on, and maybe this particular booth has a long line. I don't get a chance to talk to them. Like, that is a huge opportunity.
Bro, you want me to build you one this year? Let's just do it. I'll do it.
Hey.
Let's throw it in this year.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've only got 32, that's not, that's a lot, but it's not unmanageable. It's when these people have hundreds.
Yeah.
Like TAB, Texas Association of Broadcasters, does a big one, and they have, it's hundreds.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I'm getting at, is because we don't have that many.
Yeah.
And we have 2,500 people in person.
Dude, you're an ideal candidate for this. Yeah, we should talk offline about this, because I think we could probably deploy that for you. Drop 4 or 5 of those around. Get the information from you that you already have for them, and that could be really successful and pretty cool. It's pretty neat. That'd be a cool case study. I mean, I would do it just for the case study. But anyway, all right. I know you got a lot to do. I won't keep you. I'm really thankful for your time, though, because it is. I wish people could fathom what your events look like on site, because we work for organizations of all sizes. Y'all's is very well run. It is a really exciting event to be a part of. There's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And it's just, you've been doing it for a long time, and y'all have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. And it's just a really cool thing to see come together every year. And we've been, I feel like, super lucky to just be able to be a part of it and be there, because it's a huge feather in our cap. When I tell other people, that are doing the biannual events with 350 people about y'all's event, I mean, their heads explode. They're just like, well, how do they do that? And I'm like, well, that's what they do, and they've been doing it for a long time. So I know you probably don't see that every day, but know that, like, you guys are in the upper echelon of people that are doing this right now. And it's pretty exciting to watch and to be a part of and to see. And we're just honored to be able to do it and kind of be on the periphery and be associated. So thank you for that, but also thank you for your time and for your knowledge. So that's it, man. That's all I got for you. Any parting words of wisdom? Anything you want to leave with people? Just tell them, don't be scared, Mike.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. And especially if you have a partner like Audion. You're gonna be all right. You're gonna be taken care of.
Yeah, I appreciate that, dude. Well, hey, look, we'll talk more soon. I know that y'all's event is coming up. Man, it's right around the corner, buddy.
About a month.
We're gonna be in Vegas partying it up. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
All the walkthroughs are done. All the pieces are in place. So it's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
All right, dude. Thanks for your time, man.
Yeah. See you soon.
All right.